Hi, thank you for joining me today. In this video, we're going to be discussing, well, three things really, just to kind of get the core of, well, let's break it down. First, we're going to be discussing clauses, what they are, a brief example or a few examples to go with it. In addition to that, we're going to be discussing what are called independent clauses, or excuse me, dependent clauses. And from that, we're going to move into what are called independent clauses. These are often points of confusion as people are learning English and trying to differentiate between what would be considered a dependent clause, and what would be considered an independent clause. So we're going to take a look at all three of these things and hopefully provide enough examples that will enable you to differentiate those on your own. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. You're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to look this way because I've got my monitor set up. Okie doke. First thing we're going to want to do is break down what a clause is. Hopefully you're able to see that on your screen. Yes, you are. Here, clauses are really just groups of words that contain a subject and a verb. So in essence, they are just a complete sentence, right? In a complete thought is sometimes how they are defined or how they are expressed. You can say something like, the cat jumped, and then I can just add a modifier. The cat jumped high. Right? Okay, we've got our subject, the cat. What did he do? That's going to be our verb, jumped. And how did he do it? Well, he jumped high. Okay, complete thought. It's just a clause. It's nothing special. You could also say a rat ran. Very, very simple sentence. Here we have a rat. And what did he do? Well, he ran. Okay, that's a clause. Just a subject, just a verb. It's just a sentence. Or a thought in some ways. All right, moving on to what is called a dependent clause. Dependent clause is, so even though they're sentences that contain both a subject and a verb, oftentimes they begin with what's called a subordinating conjunction. And there's a few examples of that. You have words like because, oops, so much for my handwriting, excuse that. If, while, oh gosh, no, I can't think of anything else. After or before, and again, these are also words that could be used as other forms of modifiers. However, in the examples I'm giving them, we're going to be using them as subordinating conjunctions. And so when you're looking at a dependent clause, or if you're trying to determine which sentence or if a sentence is dependent rather than independent, you just have to ask yourself, well, does it express a complete thought? And of course, look to see if the sentence itself begins with one of these subordinating conjunctions. And this is not an exhaustive list. There's quite a few. You're welcome to take a look at those for yourself. But for now, let's go ahead and look at a few examples. Let me go ahead and switch my color. Actually, let me go ahead and switch my pen. It's a little too thick. Let me go to green. So you can say, because it was so cold, period. Well, here we've got the subordinating conjunction because it was so cold, period. Does not provide you with what's called a complete thought, because it implies that something should have gone prior to it, or another idea should have helped to conclude or address the meaning behind this sentence. For example, because it was so cold, you wouldn't end it. It's dependent. It needs another sentence to support it or to finish the thought. You could say, comma, I wore a sweater. Now here, I'm adding to this what's called an independent clause to complete the dependent clause, which I'm going to go ahead and circle here, because it needs this independent clause, which we'll talk about a little bit, to complete the thought. You can say, while it was raining is another example, period. Well, while it was raining, what? What's the thought? What is it that the speaker or the writer is trying to convey? It's left unanswered largely because, one, we take a look, we see that it begins with a subordinating conjunction, and we see that the thought itself is incomplete insofar as it doesn't really address what was happening while it was raining, right? Or what happened as a result of that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the independent clause, which we covered briefly just in that description of a dependent clause. All right, now for an independent clause, it's a clause insofar as it contains a subject and a verb, and it also expresses a complete thought, right? You can say, she was very tired. And these are very basic sentences. Here we've got our subject, she, right? Well, she was is going to be our verb, very tired. So very is going to be the adverb to describe the extent to which she was very tired in this regard. Just a complete sentence, it can live on its own in the sense that it doesn't rely on another sentence to help complete the thought. Although if you wanted, you could take that independent clause and we can pair it with the dependent clause, right? Because, or no, how about this? Sorry, she was very tired, comma, because she stayed up at night studying, right? So here, and again, forgive my handwriting, here we've got our independent clause, which I'm going to go ahead and circle here. So she was very tired. That sentence in itself could, or in and of itself, could live on its own. It'd be fine. However, the next part starts with a subordinating conjunction, so because, and then this part's going to be your dependent clause, which again needs to be paired with that independent clause in order for it to be complete thought. So she was very tired because she stayed up at night studying. Okay. Hopefully, and let's go ahead and kind of circle back, we discussed what a clause is. It's just a subject plus a verb. A dependent clause is literally the same thing. It's a subject plus a verb, but it's a complete thought. And of course, oh, excuse me, I'm marking the wrong one. That's an independent clause. And for a dependent clause, this is simply going to be a subject plus a verb, but traditionally is going to begin with a subordinating conjunction. And it does not equal a complete thought. Okie doke? All right, hopefully this, let me go ahead and ensure that this did in fact record, which it did. Perfect, okay. Hopefully you found this video helpful, which if you did, I would appreciate it if you would like it. And of course, if you haven't already, I would appreciate it as well if you would subscribe. It does help me reach a broader audience through the YouTube algorithm, given the way that it's set up. Okay, I look forward to working with you on the next grammar-focused video as you are learning English or perhaps reinforcing or augmenting your existing English education. All right, thank you again.